Have you ever noticed how your brain can take a totally normal everyday event and just spin it into this wild catastrophic story? Because, wow, I know mine definitely does. I'll sit there, well, actually, sometimes I'll pace around the room analyzing a tiny 30-second interaction over and over again, tearing it completely apart. And then, hours later, I realize it was literally just a normal conversation. No big deal at all. So today, I really want to share a bit of my own story with you in this explainer because it's something so many of us deal with in total silence. We're looking at the hidden drain on our minds, overthinking. It's incredibly draining on our mental health, and we're going to break down exactly how it traps us, and more importantly, how we can actually break free. I actually caught myself doing this just the other day. Have you ever been talking to a friend and you're nodding along, physically right there in the room with them, but your mind is just completely somewhere else? You're totally lost in this mental movie about some past argument, or maybe stressing about someone entirely different. You get so deep into that internal narrative that you don't even process what the person standing right in front of you is actually saying. It's such a deeply relatable thing, but honestly, it feels incredibly isolating when it happens. So that brings us to our first core concept, the background noise. And I mean the noise that is working continuously. Because it's always running in the background, kind of like an app that's just silently destroying your phone's battery life. Everything feels 10 times harder when you aren't fully present. Suddenly, your thoughts start racing at a million miles an hour. You look at a simple choice and your brain immediately goes, okay, if I choose this, well, this might happen. You start vividly imagining a dozen different scenarios instantly. Your mind is moving so fast, analyzing every tiny variable, that you get totally confused about what's actually real and what's just your imagination.
Or maybe something else could go wrong. You see how this builds, right? It is relentless. Instead of giving you any sort of clarity to make a solid decision, this overthinking just creates endless dilemmas. Even when you finally force yourself to just pick an option, you're still completely plagued by doubt afterward. It is exhausting because the thoughts just keep running, wrapping this thick, heavy fog over your actual day-to-day life.
Let's move on to our next section, stuck in the loop, where it turns into a persistent mental habit. Here is exactly how this insidious little habit formed for me. First, a completely random thought arrives. Seriously, could be anything. But instead of just letting it pass, I'd attach to it, and boom, I'd zone out for hours without even realizing it. And it's not like I was actively sitting down with a notepad trying to focus on it. I was just getting mentally hijacked. With time, it literally just became an automatic mental habit. A lot of people think, well, this is just a normal way to live. But slowly, this pattern chips away at your present moment and your peace of mind. You aren't really free anymore. You become a captive, engaged in your own thoughts. It took me a long time to realize what overthinking actually is. Look, every person on the planet has thousands of thoughts a minute. That's just being human. But overthinking is deliberately staying on one single thought without realizing how to get out of that loop. Over time, it turns into this automatic reflex of analyzing and questioning absolutely everything. It's a trap, but the exit door is completely hidden. Which leads us perfectly into section 3, the illusion of control and trying to solve it all. For the longest time, I used to think I was being responsible. I thought I was actively trying to solve and plan everything to protect myself from bad outcomes. It's like if I just thought hard enough, I could somehow control the uncontrollable. But the harsh reality, I was just creating doubt, creating fear, and massively draining my own energy. This can even severely mess up our relationships because of all the miscommunication it causes. Because, let's face it, no matter how careful you are, life is uncertain. You simply cannot control every outcome, and trying to do so just ensures you're the one who suffers the most.
There's this one realization that completely changed the game for me. Not every thought is true. Let me say that again. Not every thought is true. Some are just possibilities, not reality. When you're stuck in that loop, replaying a fear over and over, your brain actually starts believing the very worst-case scenarios you were trying to avoid in the first place. You completely blur the line between a passing maybe and actual hard reality. Listen, just because a thought popped into your head does not make it a fact.
So, how do we actually shift this mindset? Section 4, letting the waves pass and using thoughts as tools. I used to do this thing where I just jam-pack my schedule to escape the noise in my head. But I eventually figured out that staying constantly busy is often just avoidance. It's just running away. But on the flip side, allowing myself to be creative actually brings this genuine sense of calmness. Simply engaging in something creative gives your brain a much-needed refresh, even if it's just for 10 precious minutes a day. But here is the most profound relief, and I really hope you take this to heart. You don't always need to be productive. You don't even always need to be creative. Sometimes it's totally okay to just sit with your thoughts. You don't have to fight them, you don't have to control them, and you definitely don't have to immediately stop them. You can just let them come in and let them wash right back out.
Think of it kind of like this. Thoughts are like waves out in the ocean. If you keep giving them all your attention, they just keep crashing over you. But if you let them pass, they slowly settle down on their own. There is so much immense peace in realizing that you don't have to play lifeguard to every single wave in the ocean. If you just step back onto the shore, get comfortable, and watch them rise and fall, the waters of your mind will naturally find their own calm. So I want to leave you with this to ask yourself today. If you stopped fighting the endless waves of your own mind, what might you finally have the peace and energy to build? Just think of all that mental processing power you'd get back. It's huge. Try to use this understanding to take a step out of the loop today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I really hope it helps you reclaim your present moment. Catch you next time.